We did multiplying and dividing. So the only difference from yesterday to today is that you're going to have what are called double factors. Okay, so this is where instead of only doing GCF, only doing T-chart, or only doing perfect squares, you're going to have a mix of both in some of the corners. So for example, take a look at number 1. It almost looks like perfect squares, right? Okay, but it's not. Okay, because I can't square root 2 and I can't square root 50. But what do they have in common? They both can divide by 2. That's right. So divide them both by 2 first. So that would be a GCF. And so when I divide by 2 on both of these, what do I have left over? X squared minus 25. And then from there, now you see that you can break it down again. What's left over here is a perfect square problem. Okay, so instead of only being able to do one factor on it, you have to do 2 sets. So then I would square root x squared. I get x times x. Then I square root 25. I get plus or minus 5. Okay, then also keep in mind that that 2 that you divided out, that would have to stay in the front. Okay? One more just like that. Take a look at number 2. Okay, what can both of those divide by? They're both even, right? So they can both divide by 2. My 2 is going to come out to the front. And then 8 divided by 2 leaves me with a what there? 8 divided by 2 is 4x squared. And then 18 divided by 2 is minus 9. And then after you divide the 2 out, what's left over is a difference of perfect squares. Okay? So then I can square root and square root. Now, remember that the square root of 4x squared, you just do the number and the x squared separately. So the square root of 4 gives me what? Square root of 4 gives me 2x. And then the square root of 9 gives me plus 3 or minus 3. Got it? Okay, so we are not going to do all of these, but we're going to do enough of them to make sure that you can do it with the doubles. So come down for me to number 3. Okay, down here at the bottom, we're going to skip 1 and 2 for right now. Okay, remember that when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across the top and the bottom. Okay, so nothing moves when you're multiplying. So I'm going to set up here times here. And then I'm going to go through each part and I'm going to factor out whatever I can. So look at your top left up here. I have an x squared plus 4x. What do they both have in common? They both have an x in common. So I'm going to GCF and divide by x. So my x comes out. My x squared leaves an x. My plus 4x leaves a plus 4. Okay, that one's done. Okay, now we're going bottom left. Okay, so I have an x plus 1. That's just going to stay the same. Okay, remember, there has to be something you can do to it for you to change it. So that one's already finished. Okay, bottom right, I'm going to do this one next. I'm just going to write 7 and then 4 x's. Okay, I'm just breaking down that x to the 4th. And then for my top right-hand corner, this is going to be a double. So we're going to have to break it down twice. What can I do first? What do they both divide by? Okay, good. So I'm going to write it over here to the side. So it's 7x squared minus 7. So I can GCF and divide by 7. What does that leave me with when I take the 7 out? X squared minus 1. And then from here, now that's a perfect square. So I can square root here and square root here. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 1 is plus or minus 1. So I would have 7, x plus 1, and then x minus 1. Okay? It was almost a perfect square, but I had to take that 7 out to make it a perfect square. Okay? Then from here, yesterday we learned you're going to look for your common factors that you can cross out. What can we cross out here? Okay, x plus 1s. And one other thing. An x. Very good. So this x and this x can cross out. Now keep in mind, I'm still going to have 3 left over on the bottom. Okay, but one of them can go away. Then there's also one other thing that can cross out. It's a number, though. The 7s. Okay, those can go away too. Alright, now we learned on Monday and reviewed Tuesday that when you cross something out, it creates a hole in the graph. So if I crossed out an x plus 1, that means that there's a hole at minus 1. And then if I crossed out an x by itself, remember that goes with a 0. Because it's not in a parentheses with another number for me to change the sign. Okay, then my vertical asymptotes are whatever's left over on the bottom. Okay, so the only x's I have are these 3 guys right here. None of them are inside, so that counts as a 0. Okay, then for your simplified expression, you just put whatever's left over. So I have an x plus 1 on top. Oh, I'm sorry, that's an x plus 4 on top. Then I have an x minus 1 on top. And then on bottom, I have 3 x's, so that'd be x to the 3rd. Okay? So the only difference from yesterday to today is you'll have a couple of those doubles. Okay? Go ahead and turn over to the back, please. Okay, we have one more multiply here. Take a look at number 4. Okay, go ahead and set up your big multiplication. Okay, top left-hand corner, what method of factoring is that going to be? That would be T-chart. Okay, so I'm going to set up my T-chart here with a 3 on top. The only way to times to get 3 is 1 times 3. That also does add to 4 in the middle, so we know we have the right numbers. Divide them both by x. So I have x plus 1 and x plus 3. Okay, bottom left-hand corner, I have a 4x cubed. So that's 4xxx. Top left-hand corner, I have an 8x. And then bottom right-hand corner, okay, what method are we going to use for this one? Square roots. Very good. Square root of x squared is just an x. And then square root of 9 is what? Plus 3 or minus 3. Very good. Okay, then from there you look through to see what can cross out. What's going to cross out here? Plus 3's and one of each of the x's can cross out. So then I would write, I'm going to have holes in the graph. If it was a plus 3 that crossed out, the hole will occur at minus 3. And then if it was an x by itself, then it would be a 0. Then your vertical asymptotes are going to be at, if this is a minus 3, it will turn to a plus 3. And then if these x's are by themselves, that would be a 0. Okay? Then for your simplified expression, you just put whatever kind of survives the canceling out. So on top, I have an x plus 1. And actually, let me say one more thing here. If you have a number that's left over on top and on bottom, you can divide them with each other. So this is what I mean by that. If I have an 8 on top and a 4 on bottom, what is 8 divided by 4? Then I'm just going to leave a 2 on top. Okay? So 8 divided by 4 gives me a 2 left over. So divide to get 2. Okay? So if there's a number on top and on bottom, you can reduce those or divide them. Okay? Then on bottom, my 4 is gone because I divided it. Then I have xx, so that's x squared. And then I have an x minus 3 still left over. Make sense? Okay, last thing we learned yesterday was how to divide these. So notice the other 2 examples both had a multiply symbol in the middle. Okay, when it is a divide by symbol, that means you're going to have to flip this second fraction. Okay, so this second fraction is going to have to be flipped. Okay, so go ahead and set up your multiplication problem. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write this one upside down. So my x that was on the top is now going to be on the bottom. And my 2x squared minus 50 is now going to be on the top. Okay, because I don't want to forget, if it's a divide by, you have to flip that second fraction. Okay? Then here I have 2x to the 4th minus 6x to the 3. Down here I have x plus 1 and x plus 5. Okay, let's see what we can factor. Now, just to help us save space, what I'm going to start doing is just kind of like factoring it in the same fraction. So like for example here, what can both of these divide by? 2 and they both have x's. So I'm going to do my GCF here, and I'm going to divide by 2x to the 3. So my 2x to the 3 is going to come out. And then I'm just going to put what is left over right above it so that I don't have to rewrite the whole thing again. So if this was a 2x to the 4th, and I divided by 2x to the 3, what's left over? Just one of the x's. Okay, good. Then I had a minus 6x to the 3. I divided by 2x to the 3. What's left over in the second spot? Minus 3. Good. And then I'm going to cross out what used to be there. So that's the new top. Okay, this bottom one's already done. This bottom one's already done. Now look at that one. What can I divide both of those by? Okay, I'm going to GCF divide by 2. So I'm going to take my 2 out to the front. And then what's going to be left over? X squared minus, what is 50 if I divide it by 2? 25. Okay, now, that's still an x squared. I want to see if I can break it down one more time. Can I break it down one more time? Okay, that's a perfect square now. So that's an example of a double factor. So I took the 2 out. Now I can do perfect squares on it. So that would be 2 square root, x plus 5, x minus 5. So what I have now is I'll highlight the important parts. Okay, but these are your 2 tops, and then your bottoms have just kind of stayed the same. So you have this on top, this on top, this on bottom, this on bottom. Okay, so what can cross out? Okay, the x plus 5s can cross out. Anything else? The 2's are both on top, or else they could cross out. Can this x cross out with one of these 3 x's? Yeah, so I'm going to list this out as a 2xxx. And then I'm going to cross out one of the x's with this x. Okay? So then from here, where will the holes in the graph be? Okay, negative 5 from the plus 5. And then the x by itself gives me a 0. Okay, then my vertical asymptotes are whatever's left over on the bottom, remember. So all that I have left over on the bottom is my x plus 1, which means there's a vertical asymptote at minus 1. Okay? Then for your simplified expression on the top, you have a 2x squared. You have an x minus 3. And actually, if I have another 2 here, could I multiply these 2's together? Okay, yeah, so I'm going to make that instead a 4 in the front. Okay, because I have a 2 times a 2. And then I have an x minus 5. Then on the bottom, all that I had left over was that x plus 1. Okay? And then I forgot to write this up here, but you're going to multiply the numerator by the reciprocal of the denominator, which means that you're going to flip the bottom. Okay? Okay? You're going to flip that second fraction. If it's a divide by, if it's a multiply, you're not flipping anything. Okay, last one. Take a look at number 6. Okay, first thing I noticed that it's a divide by. Divide by means you have to flip the second fraction. So my first fraction is going to stay the same. I'm going to have x squared on top. Actually, let's write that as x times x. And then this last fraction is going to end up getting flipped. So I'm going to have x squared minus 1 on top. I'm going to have x squared minus x on bottom. And you have to remember to flip the second one because it's a divide by. Okay? Then from here, I want to see if I can factor these two pieces here and here. So look at the top one. What type is the top one? Can't be T-chart because it doesn't have an A, a B, and a C. So is it perfect squares or GCF for the top? Perfect squares. Square root, square root. The square root of x squared is going to be x and x. And then the square root of 1 would be plus 1 or minus 1. Okay, and then I'm going to cross out the old top. Okay, now let's look at the bottom. X squared minus x. What can we do with that one? What can I divide out of both of those? They both have an x. So my x is going to come out to the front. My x squared leaves me with another x. And my minus x, you have to leave a placeholder. So think about right now, that's like a 1x. So if I take the x out, it's just going to leave that 1. So it'll be a minus 1. Okay? Alright, so we have this is the top and the bottom. This is the new top and the new bottom. Okay, looking at your 4 chunks, what can cross out? Okay, I have an x here and an x here. Those can cross out. What else? X plus 1s and x minus 1s. And remember, if you crossed out 3 things, then you should have 3 numbers listed for holes. So there will be holes in the graph at, let's just go first. Right here, if I had a plus 1, that means there's a hole at minus 1. Okay, that's this one. Then this x is not in a parentheses. That means it goes with a 0 because it's outside. And then this was an x minus 1, so the other hole is at positive 1. Okay, then your vertical asymptote will be whatever is left over on the bottom only. So the only thing left over on the bottom is this x plus 2, which means that there's a vertical asymptote at minus 2. Okay? Then your simplified expression, what's the only thing left over on top? Just this x right here. And then the only thing left over on bottom is that x plus 2. Okay? Okay, there's one more that I wanted to do. Flip back over to the front. We're going to do number 2. Okay? And the main reason why is just to make sure that you guys remember how to T-chart with a number in the front. So take a look at number 2. How are we going to do the top of that? Is it GCF or perfect squares? So do they have anything in common? 9x squared and 1? No, if they don't have anything in common, it has to be perfect squares, right? So square root 9x squared, what do I get? 3x, right? Because we got to give it an x as well. And now square root the 1, what's the square root of 1? Plus or minus 1. So I put a plus 1 and a minus 1. Okay, now look at the bottom. The bottom's going to be T-chart, but I want you to pay attention to the fact that there's a number in the front. Okay, so some of you guys on your test, when there was a number in front, forgot how to factor it. So when you do your T, do I just put a 3 on top? No, you have to multiply A and C. So if this is A, B, C, when I multiply A and C together, that's 6 times 3. What do I put at the top? 18. So then I have 1 times 18, 2 times 9, leave a little bit of space, or 3 times 6. Now, when I pick my numbers, they have to add up to 11. So who do we want? 2 and 9. It's going to be these two. But can I use 2 and 9 only? No, you have to divide by what? 6x. Okay? And remember that if they can't divide all the way, they can at least still reduce. So for example, if I'm doing the 2 over 6, what can that reduce to be? 1 over 3x. Okay, and then 9 divided by 6 doesn't go, but it can reduce. The top and the bottom can both divide by 3. So if I divide 9 by 3, I get 3. 6x divided by 3 is 2x. And then from there, I can write my factors. I'm still looking for stuff to cancel out, though. So my first factor is going to be 3x plus 1. Remember, you go bottom to top. And what would this factor be? 2x and then plus 3. Good. Okay. Then I look to see if anything can cross out. I see my 3x plus 1s are going to cross out. That's going to create a hole in the graph. And then remember that if there's a number in this first spot on the x, that means it's going to end up being a fraction. So if you don't remember how to do it, let 3x plus 1 equal 0 and then solve it. But if it's a plus 1 here, when it moves over, what's going to happen? 3x is going to equal minus 1. And then what do I do with the 3 to get rid of it? Put it on the bottom divide. So it'll be negative 1 over 3. That would be the whole. Okay. Now, the vertical asymptote, I would recommend, you shouldn't really have to solve it like this every time. Just think about it. If it's a plus 3 here, what's the answer going to be? Instead of a plus 3, it'd be a minus 3, and then where does the 2 end up? On the bottom. So it'd be, instead of a plus 3, it'd be a minus 3, and then that 2 ends up on the bottom to make it a fraction. So if there's a number in both spots, you change the sign on that one, you put that number on the bottom. Okay? Then your simplified expression would be 3x minus 1 over 2x plus 3. Okay? Alright, so mostly the same as yesterday, you just have to watch out for those double factors. Okay? So take a look at your homework for me. Okay, a couple of them are already done for you. Why don't you give number 6 a shot, please, on the bottom. We'll do one off the front, one off the back. Okay, number 6. And the only 2 you're going to have to fix are going to be these 2 corners. The other 2 corners are both good to go. Okay. Top left-hand corner, what method are you using up there? For this one? T-chart? So I would make it a minus 8 up there at the top. 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. But then remember, if it's a minus at the top of the chart, you're subtracting to get the b. So if I want to get a 7 in the middle, I have to do 8 minus 1. Then divide by x, divide by x. So it'll be x minus 1 and x plus 8. Okay, the reason I wanted to do this one is that bottom right is going to be a double. So see if you can do that bottom right, just like we did in the notes. So it's 2x squared minus 2. What's step 1 for the double? Take out the what? The GCF. What is the GCF? 2? So I'm going to take the 2 out and then see what's left over. So when the 2 comes out, the 2x squared is just an x squared now. And then when I do 2 divided by 2, now it's a minus 1. Then after you take out the GCF, now it's a perfect squares. Perfect square. Okay, so then square root, square root. The square root of x squared is x. And the square root of the 1 is going to be plus 1 or minus 1. And then also remember that that 2 that you took out, you want to just kind of leave that here in the front. Okay? Then you're looking to see what can cross out. What can cross out here? Okay, the plus 8s and the minus 1s. What does that create in the graph if they cross out? Holes. Okay, so I would put, I'm going to have holes at x equals minus 8 and positive 1. Okay, because those are the ones that crossed out. Then your vertical asymptotes, your VAs, are going to happen at any x's left over on the bottom. So if I have a plus 1 left over, where will the vertical asymptote be at? Yep, it'd be, take the plus 1, turn it to a minus 1. Now remember that even though there's a 2 left over on the bottom, there has to be an x for it to count. So that 2 doesn't count as anything. Okay? Then from there, your simplify step, I have an x plus 5 left over on top. And I have a 2x plus 1 left over on bottom. And then you have it solved. Okay? Alright, flip over to the back. So remember, for multiply ones, you do not flip. Okay, turn over to the back and we'll do one of the divides to make sure you got it. Let's do number 9. Okay, number 9. So remember, I'm only flipping this second one. Okay, you are not flipping the first one. So I'm going to do blank times blank. And then I can see that I'm going to have to fix these 2 sides, but the other 2 corners are fine. So I'll have x plus 3 down here is good to go, and 2x minus 5. Oops, where should I put 2x minus 5? On the bottom, because remember, we're flipping. Okay? Alright, so let's do top left-hand corner. I'm going to put my t-chart up here. I need my numbers to multiply to be 5. What is the only partner for 5? Because 5 is prime. 1 and 5. Now, I want them to add to minus 6. So I'm going to have to use negative 1 and negative 5, yeah? They have to both be negative. Then divide by x. It'll be x minus 1 and x minus 5. Okay, your 3x squared minus 27 is also a double. Okay, so I want you to give it a shot and see if you can do it this time, because we've done all the other doubles up here. So give it a shot. You're going to divide first, and then you're going to perfect square whatever's left over. Because it's a divide by. Were you gone yesterday? We learned that yesterday. Whenever you're dividing by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, which is like when you flip it. So you keep the first one the same, you change this to a multiply problem, and then you flip that second one. So think about, like, if I was going to divide by 2, what's that the same as? Timesing by 1 over 2. It's like you're flipping it. Okay? Okay, so what can I do first on that one? Divide by what? 3. What does that leave me with left over? X squared minus 9. And then from there, square root, square root. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. So it'll be x plus 3 and x minus 3 with what in the front? Another 3. Okay? And then from there, you scan through, see if anything can cross out. So I see that my -5s here can cross out, and my +3s can cross out. Now remember that since they crossed out in the graph, those are going to be listed as holes, which is a type of discontinuity. So that will be at -3 and +5. Remember, you're always changing the sign on those. And then for my vertical asymptote, were there any x's left over on the bottom? No. So then what do I put for my asymptotes? There are none. Okay? Then for your simplify step, you just write the stuff that's left over. Now, quick thing here. If I took out a 3 on top and I have a 2 on the bottom, if I could divide those, I would do it. But can 3 divide by 2? No. So you're just going to leave it. So I'd have x minus 1 times 3 times x minus 3, and then on the bottom you have a 2. And that would just be your answer. Okay. All right, you have about 10 left. You have about 20 minutes. I'm going to pass back your tests. You can't keep them, but it'll at least give you an idea of what you got. Your grades are already online. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So just make sure that you check your focus to see what you got. Okay.
Oh, I didn't get
Okay, then, yeah, I see you wrote that. Yeah, you can finish it. I already graded it. But you can still do the ones you didn't get to. Okay, so just real quick on your test. If you want to correct them, you can. You just have to come in after school. Remember, after school days are Tuesday, Thursday. If you need to do it during lunch, I am off 4th, so usually I can do that. If that's the only time that you can come or you have to ride the bus or whatever, that's totally fine. You just have to talk to me about it. Okay? So, if you failed or if you didn't do very well, you can correct it, but you just have to make the effort to do that. I'm not going to track everybody down Y'all are juniors and seniors, so if you want to correct it, talk to me about it every Tuesday, every Thursday after school. I stay till like 5, 5:30. Those are my long tutoring days. I'm also usually here Friday morning and then also during lunch. And then other times if you just let me know, okay? If you didn't get a test, that means you didn't take it, so you gotta take it, okay? Alright, can I have your tests back? I'll come grab them, and then you can just work on your own. Thank you. James, have you been sick?
No, I got my wisdom.
Oh, okay. I'll give you the stuff that you missed. Thank you. And then, I guess just let me know when you want to finish the ones that you didn't get to. Okay?
That's the curriculum.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the first.
What'd you do?
That's the one.
Oh, and you just typed it in as a 2? No. It's always so good.